Let's call it a day. Stop for now and continue tomorrow or some other time because you have done enough already. Here's an example. John worked late and was tired. He decided to go home and return tomorrow to continue working. We can use call it a day here. Let's change it. John worked late, but he decided to call it a day. Call it a day. Call it a day. Call it a day. He decided to call it a day. He decided to call it a day because he was tired. He worked late, but he decided to call it a day. He worked late but decided to call it a day because he was tired. Because he was tired. He decided to call it a day because he was tired. Welcome to the Professor English podcast, where we don't just talk about English, we practice English. My name is Ryan, and I am your host. Today we are going to practice English by using the idiom, call it a day. Let's finish for now. We have done enough for now. That's what it means. This is a listening and a speaking exercise. So if you want to improve your English listening and your English speaking, and while also improving your vocabulary, in other words, the whole enchilada, you have found the right video. There are no long explanations, just English practice. Practice listening and practice speaking. So if you're not clear how to use call it a day, don't worry. We're going to practice it now. And by the end of the video, the idea will be very clear. So be sure and watch until the end. Before we begin, I just want to remind you that if you prefer some visual help with this exercise, you can always see the video version on my YouTube channel, Professor English ESL Class. Now, let's dive in and start practicing English. Here is a situation. Mike and John were brainstorming for a long time, and finally they were both tired. They decided to finish for now and continue the next day after they felt refreshed. We can use call it a day, meaning they decided to stop this activity and continue it later. Let's change the sentence. Mike and John were brainstorming. They were brainstorming, but decided to call it a day. They were brainstorming, but decided to call it a day. They decided to call it a day. They were brainstorming, but decided to call it a day, which means stop for now and continue later, maybe when they have more energy or feel fresher. Let's make a when will continue question. When? When will they? When will they continue? When will they continue brainstorming? Here is the answer. They will continue brainstorming tomorrow. They decided to call it a day, but they will continue brainstorming tomorrow. They decided to call it a day. They decided to call it a day. Call it a day. Call it a day. Call it a day. They decided to call it a day, but they will continue brainstorming tomorrow. All right, fantastic job. Let's try another one. Lisa and Mary were playing tennis. Although they were having fun, they were both tired and decided to stop for the day, with the understanding that later they would play again. We can use call it a day here. They called it a day. They called it a. They called it a day. They stopped for now, understanding that they would continue later. They called it a day. They were playing tennis, but called it a day. Called it a day. That means they stopped for today. They were playing tennis, but they called it a day. They called it a day because they were tired. They were playing tennis, but called it a day because they were tired. Let's make a when will continue playing question. When? When will they? When will they continue? When will they continue playing tennis? Here is the answer. Next week. They will continue playing tennis next week. They were playing tennis, but called it a day. They were playing tennis, but called it a day because they were tired. But they will continue playing next week. All right, you're doing a super duper job. Let's try another example. But before we do, I just want to remind you that if you find these exercises helpful, please take a moment to subscribe to my channel, Professor English ESL Class, so that you won't miss the next lesson. And if you're watching this video on YouTube, please take a moment to press the like button. It helps my channel so much and lets me know that you want to see more fluency and listening comprehension exercises just like this one. Now let's keep practicing English. Here is another example. Mike was visiting London and he spent all day walking around sightseeing. He walked so much that his feet hurt and he decided to finish for the day. We can use call it a day here. He called it a day. That means he decided to finish for today. He called it a day. He called it a. He called it a. He called it a. He called it a day. He was sightseeing, but he called it a day because his feet were tired. Because his feet were. Because his feet were. Because his feet were tired. Because his feet were tired. Because his feet were tired. He was sightseeing, but he called it a day because his feet were tired. Let's make a when continue sightseeing question. When will he? When will he? When will he continue? When will he continue sightseeing? Here is the answer: tomorrow. He will continue sightseeing. He will continue sightseeing tomorrow. He called it a day, but... He called it a day, but he will continue sightseeing tomorrow. He'll continue sightseeing tomorrow. He called it a day because his feet were tired. Because his feet were tired. Because his feet were. Because his feet were tired. He called it a day because his feet were tired. He called it a day because his feet were tired, but he'll continue sightseeing tomorrow. Okay, here is one more situation. The training session lasted all day. They covered a lot of information, and everyone was tired, so they decided to finish and start again tomorrow. Let's use call it a day. They called it a day. Called it a. Called it a. Called it a. They called it a day. They covered a lot of information. They covered a lot of information and everyone was tired. They covered a lot of information and everyone was tired, so they called it a day. They called it a day. Let's make a when continue the training session question. When will they? When will they? When will they? When will they? When will they continue? When will they continue? When will they? When will they continue the training session? Here is the answer. Tomorrow morning. They will continue. They'll continue the training session tomorrow morning. They called it a day, but they will continue the training session tomorrow morning. They called it a day because they were tired, but they'll continue the training session tomorrow morning. All right, you did an amazing job today, and you practiced some fantastic English. Congratulations, I knew you could do it. Remember, practice makes perfect, so you should repeat this exercise several times, not just so that you can remember the expression call it a day, but also to improve your speaking skills and your listening skills. It's been really fun practicing English with you today, and I hope to see you again real soon. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to press the like button. See you in the next video with more interesting words and phrases.